virtual storytelling of the Little Prince. So right next to me is Chibi Prince, who was created by my friend Kevin to be brought into this world called Tiltbrush. And I'm currently standing on asteroid 325, and it has 2 volcanoes. So for my virtual storytelling, I need to be placed in VR. So let me put on my VR headset. So as I said, asteroid 325 has 2 active volcanoes. They are here and here. So what does the Little Prince do on such a small planet? Well, he makes sure that it doesn't get overrun by baobab trees, because it would be a catastrophe if it does. Oh no. One of his favorite pastimes, actually, on a planet so small, is to watch all the sunsets. His favorite day was when he was able to witness 44 sunsets in 24 hours. But then one day, a magical seed showed up, in which case, I'll have the narrator take over while I paint out the scenes.
On the Little Prince's planet, there had always been very simple flowers, decorated with a single row of petals, so that they took up no room at all and got in no one's way. They would appear one morning in the grass and would fade by nightfall. But this one had grown from a seed brought from who knows where, and the Little Prince had kept a close watch over a sprout that was not like any of the others. It might have been a new kind of baobab, but the sprout soon stopped growing and began to show signs of blossoming. The Little Prince, who had watched the development of an enormous bud, realized that some sort of miraculous apparition would emerge from it. But the flower continued her beauty preparations in the shelter of her green chamber, selecting her colors with the greatest care and dressing quite deliberately, adjusting her petals one by one. She had no desire to emerge all rumpled like the poppies. She wished to appear only in the full radiance of her beauty. Oh yes, she was quite vain, and her mysterious adornment had lasted days and days. And then, one morning, precisely at sunrise, she showed herself. And after having labored so painstakingly, she yawned and said, I'm hardly awake. Forgive me. I'm still all untidy. But the Little Prince couldn't contain his admiration. How lovely you are! Aren't I? The flower answered sweetly. And I was born the same time as the sun. The Little Prince realized that she wasn't any too modest, but she was so dazzling. I believe it is breakfast time, she had soon added. Would you be so kind as to tend to me? And the Little Prince, utterly abashed, having gone to look for a watering can, served the flower. She had soon begun tormenting him with her rather touchy vanity. One day, for instance, alluding to her 4 thorns, she remarked to the Little Prince, I'm ready for tigers with all their claws. And besides, tigers don't eat weeds. I am not a weed, the flower sweetly replied. Forgive me. I am not at all afraid of tigers, but I have a horror of drafts. You wouldn't happen to have a screen? A horror of drafts? That's not a good sign for a plant, the Little Prince had observed. How complicated this flower is. After dark, you will put me under glass. How cold it is where you live. Quite uncomfortable. But where I come from... But she suddenly broke off. She had come here as a seed. She couldn't have known anything of other worlds. Humiliated at having let herself be caught on the verge of so naive a lie, she coughed 2 or 3 times in order to put the little prince in the wrong. Ahem. The screen? I was going to look for one, but you were speaking to me. Then she made herself cough again, in order to inflict a twinge of remorse on him all the same. So the little prince, despite all the goodwill of his love, had soon come to mistrust her. He had taken seriously certain inconsequential remarks and had grown very unhappy.
So here's the first part of the little prince with the rose. The little prince is basically heartbroken at this point. He basically trusted and loved the rose and tendered to it and nurtured it, gave it love, watered it, and even found a glass capsule to encase it from the drafts. However, because the little prince was heartbroken, he could not stay on this planet with the rose. So he decided to go what anybody who's heartbroken will do, and that's travel to various different worlds. But before he left, he of course raked out the volcanoes, even the dormant one, because you never know. And he and the rose actually had a reconciliation. The rose finally apologized for being so vain and wished him well on his journey. So let's go to new planets and explore the various different characters and the various different grown adults the little prince will meet. And since we're streaming live, we can actually color the planet any color we want. So for the first planet, we're going to leave asteroid 235. You've been amazing. And let's make a new planet, because the world has various different planets to explore. So the prince leaves onto a new planet. What color should this planet be? I actually have Twitch chat live on my arm right now. So does anybody have a suggestion as to what color you want? Maroon, okay. Maroon it is. Our little prince is flying over to our new planet. And now we're ready to see what's on this planet. So, Andrew, if you can I have the audio, please?
The first one was inhabited by a king. Wearing purple and ermine, he was sitting on a simple yet majestic throne. "Ah, here's a subject," the king exclaimed when he caught sight of the little prince. And the little prince wondered, how can he know who I am if he's never seen me before? He didn't realize that for kings, the world is extremely simplified. All men are subjects. "Approach the throne so I can get a better look at you," said the king, very proud of being a king for someone at last. The little prince looked around for a place to sit down, but the planet was covered by the magnificent ermine cloak. So he remained standing, and since he was tired, he yawned. "It is a violation of etiquette to yawn in a king's presence," the monarch told him. "I forbid you to do so." "I can't help it," answered the little prince, quite embarrassed. "I've made a long journey, and I haven't had any sleep." "Then I command you to yawn," said the prince. "I haven't seen anyone yawn for years. For me, yawns are a curiosity. Come on, yawn again. It is an order." "That intimidates me. I can't do it now," said the little prince, blushing deeply. "Well, well," the king replied. "Then I command you to yawn sometimes, and sometimes to, He was sputtering a little and seemed annoyed. For the king insisted that his authority be universally respected. He would tolerate no disobedience, being an absolute monarch. But since he was a kindly man, all his commands were reasonable. "If I were to command," he would often say, "if I were to command a general to turn into a seagull, and if the general did not obey, that would not be the general's fault, it would be mine." "May I sit down?" the little prince timidly inquired. "I command you to sit down," the king replied, majestically gathering up a fold of his ermine robe. But the little prince was wondering. The planet was tiny. Over what could the king really reign? "Sire," he ventured, "excuse me for asking." "I command you to ask," the king hastened to say. "Sire, over what do you reign?" "Over everything," the king answered with great simplicity. "Over everything?" With a discreet gesture, the king pointed to his planet, to the other planets, and to the stars. "Over all that?" asked the little prince. "Over all that," the king answered. For not only was he an absolute monarch, but a universal monarch as well. "And do the stars obey you?" "Of course," the king replied. "They obey immediately. I tolerate no insubordination." Such power amazed the little prince. If he had wielded it himself, he could have watched not 44, but 72, or even 100, even 200 sunsets on the same day without ever having to move his chair. And since he was feeling rather sad on account of remembering his own little planet, which he had forsaken, he ventured to ask a favor of the king. "I'd like to see a sunset. Do me a favor, Your Majesty. Command the sun to set." "If I commanded a general to fly from one flower to the next like a butterfly, or to write a tragedy, or to turn into a seagull, and if the general did not carry out my command, which of us would be in the wrong, the general or me?" "You would be," said the little prince, quite firmly. "Exactly. One must command from each what each can perform," the king went on. "Authority is based first of all upon reason. If you command your subjects to jump in the ocean, there will be a revolution. I am entitled to command obedience because my orders are reasonable." "Then my sunset?" insisted the little prince, who never let go of a question once he had asked it. "You shall have your sunset. I shall command it. But I shall wait, according to my science of government, until conditions are favorable." "And when will that be?" inquired the little prince. "Well, well," replied the king, first consulting a large calendar. Well, that will be that will be tonight around 7:40, and you'll see how well I am obeyed." The little prince yawned. He was regretting his lost sunset. And besides, he was already growing a little bored. "I have nothing further to do here," he told the king. "I'm going to be on my way." "Do not leave," answered the king, who was so proud of having a subject. "Do not leave. I shall make you my minister." "A minister of what?" Of justice." "But there's no one here to judge." "You never know," the king told him. "I have not yet explored the whole of my realm. I am very old. I have no room for a carriage, and it wearies me to walk." "Oh, but I've already seen for myself," said the little prince, leaning forward to glance one more time at the other side of the planet. "There's no one over there either." "Then you shall pass judgment on yourself," the king answered. "That is the hardest thing of all. It is much harder to judge yourself than to judge others. If you succeed in judging yourself, it's because you are truly a wise man." "But I can judge myself anywhere," said the little prince. I don't need to live here. Well, well, the king said. I have good reason to believe that there is an old rat living somewhere on my planet. I hear him at night. You could judge that old rat. From time to time, you will condemn him to death. That way his life will depend on your justice. But you'll pardon him each time, for economy's sake. There's only one rat. I don't like condemning anyone to death, the little prince said. And now I think I'll be on my way. No, said the king. The little prince, having completed his preparations, had no desire to aggrieve the old monarch. If your majesty desires to be promptly obeyed, he should give me a reasonable command. He might command me, for instance, to leave before this minute is up. It seems to me that conditions are favorable. The king having made no answer, the little prince hesitated at first, and then, with a sigh, took his leave. I make you my ambassador, the king hastily shouted after him. He had a great air of authority. Grown-ups are so strange, the little prince said to himself as he went on his way.
So that was the first planet with the king with no subjects. The character is kind of familiar. He's the Ice King from the Game of Thrones. I figured he would be the best representation in a way. And I've been hearing a lot of pings from Twitch.Chat. So I'm actually going to go into VR and then answer some of the questions from Twitch.Chat. While I'm doing that, think about the color of the next planet, the second planet. So on Twitch.Chat, let's see here. Seafoam green. Okay, that's going to be the next color. Is there any questions right now or any comments? Awesome. Okay, then I'm going to make the planet Seafoam green. Oh, cool. Thanks. Hey, for all the people that's joining us, I'm actually painting the Little Prince and creating characters and planets. And I just got the request to turn the planet Seafoam Green, the second planet that the prince is going to go to. Let's go on to the second planet and see what interesting character we'll run into this time around.
The second planet was inhabited by a very vain man. Ah, a visit from an admirer, he exclaimed, when he caught sight of the little prince, still at some distance. To vain men, other people are admirers. Hello, said the little prince. That's a funny hat you're wearing. It's for answering acclamations, the very vain man replied. Unfortunately, no one ever comes this way. Is that so? Said the little prince, who did not understand what the vain man was talking about. Clap your hands, directed the man. The little prince clapped his hands, and the vain man tipped his hat in modest acknowledgement. This is more entertaining than the visit to the king, the little prince said to himself, and he continued clapping. The very vain man continued tipping his hat in acknowledgement. After 5 minutes of this exercise, the little prince tired of the game's monotony. And what would make the hat fall off? He asked. But the vain man did not hear him. Vain men never hear anything but praise. Do you really admire me a great deal? He asked the little prince. What does that mean, admire? To admire means to acknowledge that I am the handsomest, the best dressed, the richest, and the most intelligent man on the planet. But you're the only man on your planet. Do me this favor. Admire me all the same. I admire you, said the little prince, with a little shrug of his shoulders. But what is there about my admiration that interests you so much? And the little prince went on his way. Grown-ups are certainly very strange, he said to himself, as he continued on his journey.
You know, I really like blue, so let's make this planet blue. we have a new visitor. Hey! For all the people that's joining us, I'm actually repainting the Little Prince with all the various different planets. Can we get all the planet shots? So far, he's on his 3rd planet from asteroid 325. So I'm painting the planet blue, and all the viewers, you can actually contribute and suggest what color to paint each new planet with each new character. The first planet had the king with no subjects, and I used the king from Game of Thrones. And the second planet was a very vain man with a nice hat, so I decorated his hat. So let's find out who's on the 3rd planet. Ready?
The next planet was inhabited by a drunkard. This visit was a very brief one, but it plunged the little prince into a deep depression. "What are you doing there?" he asked the drunkard, whom he found sunk in silence before a collection of empty bottles and a collection of full ones. "Drinking," replied the drunkard with a gloomy expression. "Why are you drinking?" the little prince asked. "To forget," replied the drunkard. "To forget what?" inquired the little prince, who was already feeling sorry for him. "To forget that I'm ashamed," confessed the drunkard, hanging his head. "What are you ashamed of?" inquired the little prince, who wanted to help. "Of drinking," concluded the drunkard, withdrawing into silence for good. And the little prince went on his way, puzzled. "Grown-ups are certainly very, very strange," he said to himself as he continued on his journey.
We just went to the 3rd planet, which had a drunkard. And if you guys watch Rick and Morty, you realize it's a 2D pixelated version of Rick, which is kind of fitting because the drunkard was mostly a 2D example of himself. He didn't really have a lot of personality. He was mostly ashamed that he was a drunkard, but couldn't stop drinking because he was a drunkard, and that's all he is. So that's why he's in 2D pixelated form. So as we go to the 4th planet, I need your help in determining what color to paint that planet before we announce our 4th character in The Little Prince. Okay, now we're ready to meet the 4th character that the Little Prince comes across on his journey.
The 4th planet belonged to a businessman. This person was so busy that he didn't even raise his head when the little prince arrived. "Hello," said the little prince. "Your cigarette's gone out." 3 and 2 make 5, 5 and 7, 12, 12 and 3, 15. Hello, 15 and 7, 22, 22 and 6, 28. No time to light it again. 26 and 5, 31. Phew, that amounts to 501,622,731. 500 million what? You're still there. 501 million... I don't remember. I have so much work to do. I'm a serious man. I can't be bothered with trifles. 2 and 5, 7... 501 million what? Repeated the little prince, who had never in his life let go of a question once he had asked it. The businessman raised his head. For the 54 years I've inhabited this planet, I've been interrupted only 3 times. The first time was 22 years ago, when I was interrupted by a beetle that had fallen onto my desk from God knows where. It made a terrible noise, and I made 4 mistakes in my calculations. The second time was 11 years ago, when I was interrupted by a fit of rheumatism. I don't get enough exercise. I haven't time to take strolls. I'm a serious person. The third time is right now. Where was I? 501 million... Million what? The businessman realized that he had no hope of being left in peace. Oh, those little things you sometimes see in the sky.
Flies?
No, those little shiny things.
Bees?
No, those little golden things that make lazy people daydream. Now, I'm a serious person. I have no time for daydreaming.
Ah, you mean the stars.
Yes, that's it, stars.
And what do you do with 500 million stars?
501,622,731. I'm a serious person and I'm accurate.
And what do you do with those stars?
What do I do with them?
Yes.
Nothing. I own them.
You own the stars.
Yes.
But I've already seen a king who...
Kings don't own, they reign over. It's quite different.
And what good does owning the stars do you?
It does me the good of being rich.
And what good does it do you to be rich?
It lets me buy other stars, if somebody discovers them. The little prince said to himself,
This man argues a little like my drunkard.
Nevertheless, he asked more questions.
How can someone own the stars?
To whom do they belong? Retorted the businessman grumpily.
I don't know. To nobody.
Then they belong to me, because I thought of it first.
And that's all it takes?
Of course. When you find a diamond that belongs to nobody in particular, then it's yours. When you find an island that belongs to nobody in particular, it's yours. When you're the first person to have an idea, you patent it and it's yours. Now I own the stars, since no one before me ever thought of owning them.
That's true enough,
the little prince said.
And what do you do with them?
I manage them. I count them and then count them again, the businessman said. It's difficult work, but I'm a serious person. The little prince was still not satisfied.
If I own a scarf, I can tie it around my neck and take it away. If I own a flower, I can pick it and take it away. But you can't pick the stars.
No, but I can put them in the bank.
What does that mean?
That means that I write the numbers of my stars on a slip of paper, and then I lock that slip of paper in a drawer.
And that's all?
That's enough.
That's amusing,
thought the little prince.
And even poetic, but not very serious.
The little prince had very different ideas about serious things from those of the grown-ups.
I own a flower myself, he continued, which I water every day. I own 3 volcanoes, which I rake out every week. I even rake out the extinct one. You never know. So it's of some use to my volcanoes, and it's useful to my flower that I own them. But you're not useful to the stars.
The businessman opened his mouth, but found nothing to say in reply, and the little prince went on his way.
Grown-ups are certainly quite extraordinary,
was all he said to himself as he continued on his journey.
Things. Okay, so that was the 4th planet with the businessman that wanted to own the stars. Can you really own the stars? I really don't know. I know people enable you to name certain stars and give you a certificate. And I know that there's certain people that's buying, allowing other people to buy land on the moon. I don't know how legit those are, but the businessman wants to own all the stars. And I basically imported a notable figure in because I figured that would be the best reflection of what is a businessman that wants to own things that he can't really own, such as stars. So we're now going to the 5th planet, and let's see what characters we come across this time. So this planet is the smallest planet. The 5th planet has a very interesting character, a very notable character in my community, especially if you're in the creative field. You would know who this person is. So let's go in. Shit. So this planet is super tiny. There we go. Ready?
The fifth planet was very strange. The fifth planet was very strange. It was the smallest of all. There was just enough room for a street lamp and a lamplighter. The little prince couldn't quite understand what use a street lamp and a lamplighter could be up there in the sky, on a planet without any people and not a single house. However, he said to himself,
It's quite possible that this man is absurd. But he's less absurd than the king, the very vain man, the businessman, and the drunkard. At least his work has some meaning. When he lights his lamp, it's as if he's bringing one more star to life, or one more flower. When he puts out his lamp, that sends the flower or the star to sleep, which is a fine occupation, and therefore truly useful.
When the little prince reached this planet, he greeted the lamplighter respectfully.
Good morning. Why have you just put out your lamp?
Orders, the lamplighter answered. Good morning.
What orders are those?
To put out my street lamp. Good evening. And he lit his lamp again.
But why have you just lit your lamp again?
Orders.
I don't understand, said the little prince.
There's nothing to understand, said the lamplighter. Orders are orders. Good morning. And he put out his lamp. Then he wiped his forehead with a red-checked handkerchief. It's a terrible job I have. It used to be reasonable enough. I put the lamp out mornings and lit it after dark. I had the rest of the day for my own affairs, and the rest of the night for sleeping.
And since then orders have changed?
Orders haven't changed, the lamplighter said. That's just the trouble. Year by year, the planet is turning faster and faster, and orders haven't changed.
Which means?
Which means that now that the planet revolves once a minute, I don't have an instant's rest. I light my lamp and turn it out once every minute.
That's funny. Your days here are 1 minute long.
It's not funny at all, the lamplighter said. You and I have already been talking to each other for a month.
A month?
Yes, 30 minutes, 30 days. Good evening. And he lit his lamp. The little prince watched him, growing fonder and fonder of this lamplighter, who was so faithful to orders. He remembered certain sunsets that he himself used to follow in other days, merely by shifting his chair. He wanted to help his friend.
You know, I can show you a way to take a rest whenever you want to.
I always want to rest, the lamplighter said, for it is possible to be faithful and lazy at the same time. The little prince continued.
Your planet is so small that you can walk around it in 3 strides. All you have to do is walk more slowly, and you'll always be in the sun. When you want to take a rest, just walk, and the day will last as long as you want it to.
What good does that do me? The lamplighter said, when the one thing in life I want to do is sleep.
Then you're out of luck, said the little prince.
I am, said the lamplighter. Good morning. And he put out his lamp.
Now that man,
the little prince said to himself as he continued on his journey,
that man would be despised by all the others, by the king, by the very vain man, by the drunkard, by the businessman. Yet he's the only one who doesn't strike me as ridiculous. Perhaps it's because he's thinking of something besides himself.
He heaved a sigh of regret and said to himself again,
That man is the only one I might have made my friend. But his planet is really too small. There's not room for 2.
Fly around to...
What the little prince dared not admit was that he most regretted leaving that planet because it was blessed with 1,440 sunsets every 24 hours.
Okay. So, that was 5 different planets. And if you guys go off to Burning Man, you would recognize where that character came from. It's actually the man from the burn, and he lights the lamp every single day and night. So at Burning Man, we actually have a group of people called the Lamplighters that go throughout Playa and light all the lamps right before sunset. So that's why I picked the man to represent the Lamplighter. So now to the 6th and last planet. Let's figure out what weird character we're going to meet this time. And of course, you can tell me what color you want me to paint the planet, the last and 6th planet, on Twitch.Chat, twitch.tv/liv, So join me there and contribute to the story and make it more immersive. That's one of the goals I'm trying to do with the Little Prince retelling, is to make it immersive. That's one of the reasons why I'm cosplaying as a prince, and with my little princess badge and my little rose right here near my heart. Okay, back into VR. Good. Okay, how about a lava type thing? Okay, if you want lava, I could definitely give you lava. Here. Yeah, let me just do lava then. So I got the suggestion to do lava. So we're gonna make this planet lava colored. So we're on our last planet, and the little prince has run into
The
various...
6th planet was 10 times bigger than the last. It was inhabited by an old gentleman who wrote enormous books. "Ah, here comes an explorer," he exclaimed when he caught sight of the little prince, who was feeling a little winded and sat down on the desk. He had already travelled so much and so far. "Where do you come from?" the old gentleman asked him.
What's that big book? Asked the little prince. What do you do with it?
"I'm a geographer," the old gentleman answered.
And what's a geographer?
"A scholar who knows where the seas are, and the rivers, the cities, the mountains and the deserts."
That is very interesting,
the little prince said.
Here at last is someone who has a real profession.
And he gazed around him at the geographer's planet. He had never seen a planet so majestic.
Your planet is very beautiful, he said. Does it have any oceans?
"I couldn't say," said the geographer.
Oh.
The little prince was disappointed.
And mountains?
"I couldn't say," said the geographer.
And cities and rivers and deserts?
"I couldn't tell you that either," the geographer said.
But you're a geographer.
"You're right," said the geographer. "But I'm not an explorer. There's not one explorer on my planet. A geographer doesn't go out to describe cities, rivers, mountains, seas, oceans, and deserts. A geographer is too important to go wandering about. He never leaves his study. But he receives the explorers there. He questions them, and he writes down what they remember. And if the memories of one of the explorers seem interesting to him, then the geographer conducts an inquiry into that explorer's moral character."
Why is that?
"Because an explorer who told lies would cause disasters in the geography books, as would an explorer who drank too much."
Why is that?
The little prince asked again. "Because drunkards see double, and the geographer would write down 2 mountains where there was only 1.
I know someone, said the little prince, who would be a bad explorer.
"Possibly. Well, when the explorer's moral character seems to be a good one, an investigation is made into his discovery."
By going to see it?
"No, that would be too complicated. But the explorer is required to furnish proofs. For instance, if he claims to have discovered a large mountain, he is required to bring back large stones from it. The geographer suddenly grew excited. But you come from far away. You're an explorer. You must describe your planet for me. And the geographer, having opened his logbook, sharpened his pencil. Explorers' reports are first recorded in pencil. Ink is used only after proofs have been furnished. "Well," said the geographer expectantly.
"Oh, where I live," said the little prince, "is not very interesting. It's so small. I have 3 volcanoes, 2 active and 1 extinct. But you never know."
"You never know," said the geographer.
"I also have a flower."
"We don't record flowers," the geographer said.
"Why not? It's the prettiest thing."
"Because flowers are ephemeral."
"What does ephemeral mean?"
"Geographies," said the geographer, "are the finest books of all. They never go out of fashion. It is extremely rare for a mountain to change position. It is extremely rare for an ocean to be drained of its water. We write eternal things."
"But extinct volcanoes can come back to life,"
the little prince interrupted.
"What does ephemeral mean?"
"Whether volcanoes are extinct or active comes down to the same thing for us," said the geographer. "For us, what counts is the mountain. That doesn't change."
"But what does ephemeral mean?"
repeated the little prince, who had never in all his life let go of a question once he had asked it. "It means what is threatened by imminent disappearance."
"Is my flower threatened by imminent disappearance?"
"Of course."
"My flower is ephemeral,"
the little prince said to himself.
"And she has only 4 thorns with which to defend herself against the world. And I've left her all alone where I live."
That was his first impulse of regret. But he plucked up his courage again.
"Where would you advise me to visit?"
he asked. "The planet Earth," the geographer answered. "It has a good reputation." And the little prince went on his way, thinking about his flower.
So, Little Prince goes to Earth, in which case I'm going to paint the Earth, and we're actually going to go inside of it and discover what hopeful friends he'll run across, especially since he's so lonely and now really tired from all his travels. After all, he went to 6 different planets. So, let's go to planet Earth. I'm going to paint Earth. And the Earth audio, please. Thank you.
311 million vain men. In other words, about 2 billion grown-ups. To give you a notion of the Earth's dimensions, I can tell you that before the invention of electricity, it was necessary to maintain, over the whole of 6 continents, a veritable army of 462,511 Lamplighters. Seen from some distance, this made a splendid effect. The movements of this army were ordered like those of a ballet. First came the turn of the Lamplighters of New Zealand and Australia. Then these, having lit their street lamps, would go home to sleep. Next, it would be the turn of the Lamplighters of China and Siberia to perform their steps in the Lamplighters' ballet. And then they too would vanish into the wings. Then came the turn of the Lamplighters of Russia and India. Then those of Africa and Europe. Then those of South America and of North America. And they never missed their cues for their appearances on stage. It was awe-inspiring. Only the lamplighter of the single street lamp at the North Pole and his colleague of the single street lamp at the South Pole led carefree, idle lives. They worked twice a year. Chapter 17. Trying to be witty leads to lying, more or less. What I just told you about the Lamplighters isn't completely true, and I risk giving a false idea of our planet to those who don't know it. Men occupy very little space on Earth. If the 2 billion inhabitants of the globe were to stand close together, as they might for some big public event, they would easily fit into a city block that was 20 miles long and 20 miles wide. You could crowd all humanity onto the smallest Pacific islet. Grown-ups, of course, won't believe you. They're convinced they take up much more room. They consider themselves as important as the baobabs. So you should advise them to make their own calculations. They love numbers and they'll enjoy it. But don't waste your time on this extra task. It's unnecessary. Trust me.
Okay, so I just finished painting Earth with various different clouds. And as you know, the little prince decides to go over to the Earth by the suggestion of the geographer. So let's also join him on Earth. There we go. Where's the little prince now? Holy crap. Ah, I lost the little prince. Okay. And let me add some more lighting here, because in Tilt Brush, oh crap, we can actually add lighting. So now we're on Earth. Let me grab the little prince and fix him up a little bit. There we go. So what characters are we going to run into on Earth? Let's go see. Is there anything from Twitch chat? Yeah, Netflix actually did make a movie about the Little Prince. So Optimus just asked me a question. Didn't Netflix just make a movie about the Little Prince? It's like, yes, he did. And that's why, well, the Little Prince is like a very classic story. It has a lot of heart in it. That's why there's a lot of retelling. So with my Tilt Brush skills, I decided why not retell the story of the Little Prince and make it immersive and interactive. And I actually watched the Netflix movie about it. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. So if you haven't seen it yet, please watch it. And now let's go in. 6. Audio. Thank you. So let's see what other characters we run into. Is there any more questions? Yeah, I just went down to Earth like that. It was really cool. That's one of the amazing things about Tilt Brush. There's a lot of things that you can manipulate, and you can basically, instead of having to look down and then work on detail, you can actually manipulate your environment to do all the things that you want to do. You can shrink things down, you can enlarge them. So, yes. Okay.
But it so happened that the little prince, having walked a long time through sand and rocks and snow, finally discovered a road. And all roads go to where there are people.
Good morning,
He said. It was a blossoming rose garden.
good morning.
Said the roses. The little prince gazed at them. All of them looked like his flower.
Who are you?
He asked, astounded.
We're roses.
The roses said.
Ah,
Said the little prince. And he felt very unhappy. His flower had told him she was the only one of her kind in the whole universe. And here were 5,000 of them, all just alike, in just one garden.
she would be very annoyed,
He said to himself.
if she saw this. She would cough terribly and pretend to be dying to avoid being laughed at. And I'd have to pretend to be nursing her. Otherwise, she'd really let herself die in order to humiliate me.
And then he said to himself,
I thought I was rich because I had just one flower, and all I own is an ordinary rose. That and my 3 volcanoes, which come up to my knee, one of which may be permanently extinct. It doesn't make me much of a prince.
and he lay down in the grass and wept.
So, the little prince came across it's hot and sweaty under these studio lights. Whew, mixed reality. Gonna need water for mixed reality. So the little, huh? Wait, what? Oh, okay. Okay. Let me take a swig of water, which is what roses need. So the little prince thought that he had something unique and majestic, which is a rose on his planet, only to come to Earth and realize the rose wasn't unique. It was one out of 5,000 roses that exist on Earth, especially in this small little garden. So he was saddened by it and started crying. So he's kind of depressed. He's heartbroken, lonely, and just got the biggest news of his life to kind of bring his spirit down further. So hopefully we can run into a character that'll uplift his spirits.
It was then that the fox appeared. "Good morning," said the fox.
Good morning.
The little prince answered politely, though when he turned around, he saw nothing. "I'm here," the voice said, "under the apple tree."
Who are you?
The little prince asked.
You're very pretty.
"I'm a fox," the fox said.
Come and play with me.
The little prince proposed.
I'm feeling so sad.
"I can't play with you," the fox said. "I'm not tamed."
Ah, excuse me,
said the little prince. But upon reflection, he added,
what does tamed mean?
"You're not from around here," the fox said. "What are you looking for?"
I'm looking for people, said the little prince. What does tamed mean?
"People," said the fox, "have guns and they hunt. It's quite troublesome. And they also raise chickens. That's the only interesting thing about them. Are you looking for chickens?"
No, said the little prince. I'm looking for friends. What does tamed mean?
It's something that's been too often neglected. It means to create ties.
To create ties?
That's right, the fox said. For me, you're only a little boy just like 100,000 other little boys. And I have no need of you. And you have no need of me either. For you, I'm only a fox like 100,000 other foxes. But if you tame me, we'll need each other. You'll be the only boy in the world for me. I'll be the only fox in the world for you.
I'm beginning to understand,
the little prince said.
There's a flower. I think she's tamed me.
Possibly, the fox said. On Earth, one sees all kinds of things.
Oh, this isn't on Earth,
the little prince said. The fox seemed quite intrigued. On another planet?
Yes.
Are there hunters on that planet?
No.
Now that's interesting. And chickens?
No.
Nothing's perfect, sighed the fox. But he returned to his idea. My life is monotonous. I hunt chickens, people hunt me. All chickens are just alike, and all men are just alike. So I'm rather bored. But if you tame me, my life will be filled with sunshine. I'll know the sound of footsteps that will be different from all the rest. Other footsteps send me back underground. Yours will call me out of my burrow like music. And then, look, you see the wheat fields over there? I don't eat bread. For me, wheat is of no use whatever. Wheat fields say nothing to me, which is sad. But you have hair the color of gold. So it will be wonderful once you've tamed me. The wheat, which is golden, will remind me of you. and I'll love the sound of the wind in the wheat. The fox fell silent and stared at the little prince for a long while. Please, tame me, he said.
I'd like to, the little prince replied. But I haven't much time. I have friends to find, and so many things to learn.
The only things you learn are the things you tame, said the fox. People haven't time to learn anything. They buy things ready-made in stores. But since there are no stores where you can buy friends, people no longer have friends.
If you want a friend, tame me. What do I have to do? Asked the little prince.
You have to be very patient, the fox answered. First, you'll sit down a little ways away from me, over there in the grass. I'll watch you out of the corner of my eye, and you won't say anything. Language is the source of misunderstandings, but day by day, you'll be able to sit a little closer. The next day, the little prince returned. It would have been better to return at the same time, the fox said. For instance, if you come at 4 in the afternoon, I'll begin to be happy by 3. The closer it gets to 4, the happier I'll feel. By 4, I'll be all excited and worried. I'll discover what it costs to be happy. But if you come at any old time, I'll never know when I should prepare my heart. There must be rights.
What's a right?
Asked the little prince. That's another thing that's been too often neglected, said the fox. It's the fact that one day is different from the other days, 1 hour from the other hours. My hunters, for example, have a right. They dance with the village girls on Thursdays. So Thursday's a wonderful day. I can take a stroll all the way to the vineyards. If the hunters danced whenever they chose, the days would all be just alike, and I'd have no holiday at all. That was how the little prince tamed the fox. And when the time to leave was near, "Ah," the fox said, "I shall weep."
It's your own fault, the little prince said. I never wanted to do you any harm, but you insisted that I tame you.
Yes, of course, the fox said.
But you're going to weep, said the little prince.
Yes, of course, the fox said.
Then you get nothing out of it.
I get something, the fox said, because of the color of the wheat. Then he added, "Go look at the roses again. You'll understand that yours is the only rose in all the world. Then come back to say goodbye, and I'll make you the gift of a secret." The little prince went to look at the roses again.
You're not at all like my rose. You're nothing at all yet, he told them. No one has tamed you, and you haven't tamed anyone. You're the way my fox was. He was just a fox like 100,000 others. But I've made him my friend, and now he's the only fox in all the world.
And the roses were humbled.
You're lovely, but you're empty, he went on. One couldn't die for you. Of course, an ordinary passerby would think my rose looked just like you. But my rose, all on her own, is more important than all of you together, since she's the one I've watered, since she's the one I put under glass, since she's the one I sheltered behind a screen, since she's the one for whom I killed the caterpillars, except the 2 or 3 for butterflies, since she's the one I listened to when she complained or when she boasted, or even sometimes when she said nothing at all, since she's my rose.
And he went back to the fox.
Goodbye, he said.
Goodbye, said the fox. Here is my secret. It's quite simple. one sees clearly only with the heart. Anything essential is invisible to the eyes.
Anything essential is invisible to the eyes, the little prince repeated, in order to remember.
It's the time you spent on your rose that makes your rose so important.
It's the time I spent on my rose,
The little prince repeated, in order to remember. People have forgotten this truth, the fox said. But you mustn't forget it. You become responsible forever for what you've tamed. You're responsible for your rose.
I'm responsible for my rose,
The little prince repeated, in order to remember.
So again, thanks for joining me. This was painted all in tilt brush. Kind of hectic, trying to get all the poly assets in and trying to get the scenery painted and make them come to life. The Little Prince was created in Medium by my friend Kevin Ang, and I have a link to his webpage. So if you want some awesome 3D characters that's hella chibi, then go check him out. Yeah, and so where I'm leaving this story, since this is all the time that we have and I'm getting really hot and sweaty under these lights, there's actually another character that comes into the story. This time I'm going to select the red plane, just to make it more novel. That comes in and lands in the desert, and the little prince ends up meeting him. So the question is whether or not this person will be the little prince's first friend and help him and console him with all the drama that's happening between him and the rose. So yeah, my name is Swan, and I'm at swanvr.art. And the background music was provided by my friend Nico, and basically this is all done by the LIV Mixed Reality Cube. So this is all done in mixed reality. This is streamed live on Twitch. And you can follow us on Twitch and interact with us at twitch.tv/liv, L-I-V. If you're interested in doing more amazing stuff with VR, it's a great medium. Until next week or next time, I'm Swan. I'll see you around. Bye!